wow. So, all of
Man.
our dirty Discord notes.
Every single note on Discord has been shown live for
Oh,
a good whole 2 seconds. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Divine and Conqueror's ReRoll podcast, where we talk about things and stuff. Tonight's conversation is going to be, as I scroll up to make sure I read this correctly, writing content, fiction and fantasy. We'll be discussing a whole bunch of stuff. We have 2 authors here.
Unpublished, of course.
Yeah, well, I think, Vic, you're the only one who has published work.
True.
I mean, you could rub that in.
True.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, technically, I am published online. I did not go through the typical means of going through publishing houses and editors and etc. So I am self-published. Yes.
But that's amazing. I don't have anything published. I've been playing. Yeah, I guess I've been playing these heckin' games for a while.
Credited. The only thing I got is credited.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
If it wasn't for you, Dickie, there will be several books on shelves that do not exist.
Mm-hmm. So
that's amazing. That's
one way of putting it.
That's super. That's a lot of props. Like that makes me proud. That's super cool. So as I'm opening chat here, because as always we're the most prepared stream in the world.
Absolutely, we are so prepared.
We have not encountered audio issues, so therefore today this is.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, I love our group. I really do. So as per usual, we're going to do a little bit of recap of what's been happening in the past couple of weeks here on DNC, and as we're getting questions from audiences, etc., and then we'll jump into that topic. So we have a couple of games for our the simplest one for our Theros game. People found these golden masks. They're finding that there's false prophets to a lot of the gods, and they're gonna go try to see what they can do about that. It's pretty early campaign, so pretty early in the campaign, so they still need to adventure and explore that. In the Harry Potter group, or Hogwarts prep, they're in where they think it's Alexandria. They are solving some puzzles. They're definitely in Egypt. They're discovering what they can do, since the entire wizarding world, pretty much on both the good and the evil side, have some beef with them. Their allies are currently incapacitated dealing with Grindelwald, so they're on their own trying to search for answers in a dungeon that's very heavily puzzle based. I wonder what that means. So I can't say things just in case they're listening. Their last game, they were currently at a riddle that they have not been able to solve, and they've had a week, and we'll see if they are able to solve it on Wednesday. That's fun. On our Monday game, we defeated a Durgan.
Yes.
We met some family drama.
Yeah.
We beat up a couple of nerds.
Just a couple of red cloaked nerds. No big deal.
No big deal.
Clearly not related to any giant scary wizarding organization.
Not even one little bit.
Not one bit. They're totally unrelated.
Not even Raceland or what? Not one little bit of it. Wait, is Raceland's Dragonlance. Raceland is not Faerun. Never mind. So Raceland has nothing to do with the Red Wizards, even though he was a Red Wizard.
Yeah.
And we might go talk to some giants, and everybody's really excited for the next couple of things, because I don't know if it's appropriate to say, Vic, or not, but
it's totally appropriate to say. Yeah. So I'm excited because in the next session, which is next week, we are literally, depending on what you all do as a party,
of course,
we will be moving from the first module of the campaign, Horde of the Dragon Queen, into the second half, which is Rise of Tiamat. So we are starting a whole new arc.
Yeah,
possibly next week.
That's so cool.
And that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. So yeah, new arc, which is amazing, and then our Friday game for Sacred World. You guys have finally gone out and trying to get back these strongholds for Whitestone. Encounter some dire trolls. There is a shortage of supplies within the city. They're completely surrounded by the herd of storms, and there might be other things at foot that the party has every single piece but has not placed a puzzle together. There's the gnolls. There's still that hag that's kind of invading y'all's area. Ariel, for whatever reason, is being hunted by a court of hell that has truth within heaven because the accords were signed by Asmodeus. Whoops, that's a thing.
That's a thing.
So the Goliaths are not as organized as they sound, but for some reason have completely taken over one of the most well-organized militias in the entire Inner Sea region.
Right.
There's a lot that you guys are gonna learn. This is gonna be fun. This is that part where like Naruto screams at Sasuke for an hour, and Sasuke screams back for another hour, and then you guys get the big reveal, and then it's like, oh, what's up, BBEG?
Oh, suddenly we're at the BBEG's door, and we're like, okay.
Oh, I didn't know you were here.
Wow, we didn't know that you were gonna be here. We were like thinking you'd be over there. Is this your book? No.
Did you write that? Did you
want this book? Did you? I don't think Ariel's gonna let you have it.
Speaking of book, did you publish this? Do you want us to tell you how to publish this book? See, look at the transition.
Full circle.
Full, really bad, not planned circle.
Yes.
But yeah. So, I think the conversation is going to try to be split into if we're jumping into conversation, unless there's things that people want to ask about the campaign. I mean, I can't ask anything for your game because it's all going to be revealed next week. So like, there's nothing.
I mean, hey, if you have questions, ask them, and I might give you an answer.
Okay, I have a question.
What's your question?
For our Monday game, for the Horde of the Dragon Queen,
Yes.
Are the giants chill? See, you can't answer.
They are not frost giants, if that's what you want to know.
No, they're cloud giants. I figure that much. You know, a castle in the clouds.
I wonder who lives there.
Yeah.
Probably stone giants, I think.
Stone giants are fucking cool. I kind of want to meet some stone giants in real life. Just like just
hang with them.
Just hang with them. Their entire life is just art. Like, that's amazing. And then you're like, hey, bro, we're going to message you. Stands up. All right, I'm 14 feet tall. I have the strength of a fucking mountain.
Yeah. I mean, you spoke with Glasshail.
Yeah.
And Glasshail did say that one of them liked to come down and talk to him a lot. And he was friends with them.
Which...
They let an old boy just hang out in their basement,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
My wondering is what which I guess we're gonna have to explore that, and we might not even know what the questions for Fox, if he gets to ask them, is different because he might just get distracted by not knowing where he is.
Because he's a Triceratops right now.
He is a Triceratops. He polymorphed. He did not B-shape. So my intelligence is 2. I think Champ might be smarter than Fox right now.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that one.
But it's so what do the Cloud Giants gain from having this dragon here? Who's flying the vessel? It sounds like the wizards are just like renting a room in this mansion that's being flown to to
The tower, the tower you entered looked like it was specifically built for wizards and not giant sized.
Yeah, which is like, so what do the Giants get to gain from being part of this organization? Because
that's a question to ask them.
because giants and dragons aren't the best of friends in Faerun. They've had beef. And from what I understand, when we're like, yeah, bro, we don't think it's cool, they're gonna take like your gold, and good old Glassy was like, excuse the hecking out of me.
Excuse the hecking what?
Yeah. So obviously, Glasshell was not informed that which Glasshell's an ancient worm. It should be pretty known that Tiamat's rising requires a horde worth of her summon, like any dragon. So was he not informed? Is he not allied with Tiamat? Like, what is the specific beef
I
with?
don't know. Is every single chromatic dragon aligned with Tiamat?
Which is that you know that there's that whole conversation of what does it mean to be one of these dragons? What does it mean to be evil? Is it just a hindrance towards humanity? So we put that classification on there because we as humans are viewing the book through our own eyes.
Right.
Little bro was like, "Oh, Spud has metal blood in him. I'm gonna hate him." And Glassell obviously can sense that. He's like, he's a donkey.
He's just a donkey.
He's just a donkey.
Yeah.
So there's still quite a bit of conversation to be had, and if it is the last game, there's still quite a bit of answers to our questions.
Hopefully we can circle back to that on the next reroll once we go through this arc and see what and all happens.
Yeah. It's I am excited. It's fun to get all those questions answered, and if they don't, then you're like, oh man. Well, there's another arc. I wonder if this leads into that arc. And it's gonna let that imagination wander.
It's gonna be I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm like, there's nothing that you can answer for me. I know how this goes, but it's good to have
Vague and unhelpful.
Yeah, it's hey, what is this book to? I don't know. Why don't you read it? Why am
I don't know. Try to open it and see what happens.
Yeah, which I think Cole still wants to. He was still promised to read the book.
Cole definitely wants to do it.
If Ariel lets him.
The Cole with the book. As I'm talking to Tabitha off to the side.
Yeah, I thought it was a very interesting move that Ariel was given a chance. Like his angel buddy was like, "I can go give this to Palo right now and solve all of your worries." Like
I think I agree with Ariel in that moment, because it's like, especially with suddenly him being told, hey, you're being arrested for treason to blah 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 blah. That's the point where I'd go, all right, I ain't trusting no bitch in this house. Like,
which that was by a name that has been given.
Yeah,
which you guys can do things with that information as you will.
Basically, yeah. Which I think it also plays into his character, as Colton had told me before, that Ariel is very, very slow to trust, and if anything happens that would betray that trust, then it's like lost forever.
But this is his oldest friend.
I know.
This is his friend before there was even gnomes in the world.
Right, and he said that he would take it to Pelor, which is the god that Ariel serves.
Yeah, and Ariel's like, no. That's why it's like, huh. So where do your alliances lie? I
think this is me just purely speculating on a character that is not my own. I feel like it's Ariel wanting to complete the task himself because it could help lead into his journey to godhood, and B, because he wants to see it through himself with his own eyes so that he could either catalog it in his book or just to see what Paylor does with this information.
Yeah, which it's one of the things where I am and as a player we've discussed this, but it's a very, very hard line he's walking, because if he does do something to the 5 lore, direct connection, that's 6 levels that go away.
Yeah, that's some Oathbreaker status right there.
So it's a very interesting fine line he's walking that I'm enjoying.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he handles it.
As long as you guys live after these trolls stop chasing you.
As long as we live, yes.
And the funny
that's the best way to address our current situation.
I think that's most of Sacred World. As long as you live, you might get an answer.
Yeah, if you guys survive this, maybe you just might get a little slight head nod at something.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
It's like, what, 90 episodes? Can you give me an answer? Here's another head nod. But that wasn't even towards the question I wanted.
Right.
Yeah, but it's
like,
another...
Please give us an answer. And like, all of the supernatural beings are like, I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. And everyone's just going fucking insane over it.
Every single supernatural being is just a fae, an arc fae who's like, I don't know.
And West is just like, fucking God, hate the gods.
Yeah.
West thinks it's a goddamn joke, honestly.
I mean...
West would like to speak to their manager.
That's a conversation that could be had at a different time. That's an entire ReRoll podcast.
West would for sure just look at Paylor and be like, I don't think you're doing a good job, buddy. I'd like to speak to your manager.
And it's like, I am the manager.
Yeah, I want to speak to the guy above you because you don't know what you're doing, obviously. You're making my friends sad. Fuck you.
It's like,
let's fucking fight.
And blank from existence.
I know, and smited.
Yeah. Wes is like, I'll fucking fight.
I'll fuck it.
You just see this in a blank space. I know. Same thing happened to me.
It's like Paylor just snaps his fingers and like Wes disappears from everyone's view, but then he's still standing next to Dis, and Dis is like, I fucking told you.
Why do you think I'm here? And then like one little person walks by, hey, how did you hear? And D's just like, I don't know. It just goes back into existence.
God.
Oh man.
Sacred World, right? Yes.
Yeah, Sacred World's it's fun. I enjoy the campaign so much.
I'm looking forward to Fridays like every week. It's so great.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's go through these things. I'm just gonna read the first one.
Okay.
So writing your campaign would be like kind of one section of the conversation, and then the second section would be translating D&D to actual works of fiction. From what I'm understanding, how you wrote tonight's notes.
Yeah. So yeah, my thought process was like a little all over the place because I was like frosting like 100 bunts at the time I was writing this down.
Were you like typing with your feet on the phone as you were like?
No, I was just laser focusing on my phone and like sending my mental thoughts to it. As it just kind of sat on the table, but yeah. So I decided I wanted to break this up in the sense of the entire conversation stems around, writing and fiction and, content creating. So I wanted to break it up first into, how writing for tabletop campaigns works, as opposed to like writing for like actual fictitious narratives like books and etc. If that made any sense.
Yeah, that can make sense. I'm listening.
Right. So, like, essentially, like, for the first point of topic, writing for your campaign, like, how is it you go about starting, like, your idea for a campaign? Like, whether it's completely like a homebrew like idea, or if you're working out of a module, like, what's your process? Like, how do you go about creating your campaign in written form?
You asking me right now?
Yes, I'm asking you right now.
Okay. It's always, to be honest, usually, I'm listening to music a song that I've listened to 100 times, and then for some reason I either mishear a lyric or hear something new, and that prompts me to be like, oh, what about this? And then that what about this turns into what if this is a conflict, and then that conflict gives me a villain, and then that villain shapes the world, and then you guys fill everything else in. That's 9 out of 10 how I write most of my games.
Okay.
Personally, I do mine kind of in sections. Basically, mostly I use a module, but like I said, modules are fragments.
Mm-hmm.
You got to fill in the gaps in between each adventure, each situation that happens. And basically, I get the things that happen. The things that are in the module. I'll go ahead and figure those out first. I'll roll. I'll take care of all the dice work. I'll get it all situated out. Then I got to make it blend into the homebrew part that kind of makes it all kind of connect together. So it's kind of like you're putting the bones together first, then you put the meat on top of it, and then you put the skin on it, and then you put the clothes on it. It's kind of a backwards thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Vic?
I don't know. I usually, well, for at the moment, I'm working out of a module, obviously. And I am currently collaborating with Tabitha on a whole world building for a campaign setting. So right now for my module, essentially what I like to do is like I'll read through it. I'll like see where it's taking me, what ambitions or like what the intended goals are for your antagonists of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I take copious amounts of notes on that, and from there, it's mostly for modules. I like to cater to the player themselves because it's like modules can be very cut and dry in the sense of all right, you're going to point A, you do a fight, okay, now you're going to point B, and like it just kind of repeats in that sense, and you don't. It's like you don't get a sense of like investment in the world, I say.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I spend a lot of time like taking villains, taking NPCs, and I try to like rewrite them in a way that makes them more engaging, more interesting, and maybe even like as foils to the characters that are coming into this story in order to combat it. So it's I'm trying to think how to say the words. I'm a writer. But yeah, it's I do listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of soundtrack music when I write because it just kind of like helps get me in that mood. Like if I listening to atmospheric music, usually my go-to is like I like to listen to the Witcher soundtrack like on like an 8-hour loop.
No.
And I'll just be listening to that while writing up my
Nice.
stuff. I kind of do the same thing for Alistair as well. Like if I'm in a like if I have to write for a setting where you guys are in a city or if you're in like some kind of town, I'll find like some soundtrack music that pertains to being in that town, and I'll just like kind of work with that mood.
I'm yeah, my music is never. I don't know if it reflects on the campaigns because there's a lot of times where like especially when you enter Whitestone, the peacefulness of the location or like they're like the farm when you guys went into Febby. Just like there's a lot of locations that have like a beautiful atmosphere to it. That's or something that's like even the Drow house that you guys went to. It was there was a lot of like gross stuff. Torture bad, but there's an elegance to it. And when I'm listening to my music, it tends not to be that. Like I'm listening to cattle decapitation as I'm writing a beautiful scene for Whitestone, or I'm writing the notes on how beautiful the leaves are. It's for some reason the extreme noise is very calming to me. So like it helps me just put out thoughts. Like it completely detunes the entire world. So I'm just focused on this piece of paper. But it's interesting because nothing that I have is generally happy.
Right.
in my tone of music.
Mhm.
Maybe two Panic at the Disco songs. So it's
Only two.
yeah, maybe only just two of them. Uh,
You know, the
so
way you two are talking sounds like one of our little podcast conversations that'd be about music. Because I mean, you're using music on putting stuff together. So
that's
we'll
not
have
a
to
bad
table that
idea.
music one day.
That's
I
not
mean,
a
But
bad
well,
idea.
music.
to me,
It's
what I do in the environment, first of all, I got to see what the abilities of each character is.
Mm-hmm.
Like what, like in D&D, who can discover traps, who can, sense this, who can sense that. And also in Gamma World too, who can do this or that. And it's just something that I take care of first. Like what percentage of them have to sense this, to know this, or stuff like that. I take care of that first, and then I go ahead and start taking care of the environment for the characters. So
Yeah, that's how I do my dungeons. Exactly what you said is exactly how I do my dungeons. I look at the abilities of the players and uh, not to say that everything's evened out from level 1 all the way to the end, but usually you don't throw a level 1 party into a level 20 dungeon, right? So
what
like
is balance?
it's balance is hard to do, and I try to do
Yeah.
balance. So like as an example, if the rogue is the trap finder, that's a very specific thing that we can all wrap our minds around, and they have a +7 to their ability. On average, I'll make the traps a 17 to begin with. That is the average, a 10 on the die. So, like, if it's really hard, I'll make sure that, you need to get a 15 to a 17 to disable this trap because it's really important to the dungeon or whatever. So it's if you're looking at how to balance your game, make sure that the characters don't have to only roll 19s to solve your puzzles. But yeah,
and I would also put that people need to understand that dungeon master, game master, you got to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the characters before you play the game, because you have to be ready for whenever they make that little left turn. You're not waiting for to put it together and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. You always have to make sure you have a ceiling in your rooms, because who knows when your character's just gonna fly out of there. That's a jab towards it.
Excuse.
No, yeah, it's true. I always try to like run through the dungeon myself to make sure if there's a way to like get out of it, like in a different manner. And it always impresses me how people figure out how to do something completely different that I'd never thought of. Like last Friday, just the simple idea of I'm gonna climb this cliff to use as an arc point because these creatures have arms; they don't have anything else. I'm like, that's obviously a brilliant idea. I would have never thought of that. Using your environment to your advantage is often amazing. You don't just go in and hack and slash. You do things and think outside the box. And putting those elements in there when you're writing can also help. Like, what's in this room? Are there barrels? Can I hide in the barrel? That's a great ambush point. Like,
what does the barrel have to do with the adventure? What does the barrel have to do with the situation at hand?
Yeah, and now you start thinking like, why is there a barrel here? Oh, maybe the barrel is like an empty barrel for like the food storage that these ogres had in this dungeon. Well, okay, so if there's just the ogres are getting food, who's bringing the food to the ogres? Oh, okay, well maybe there's like a goblin camp that like exchanges things. So now the ogres and the goblins are working together in the city, and now you have like a monopoly of food exchange between these two races, and it all that starts building up. And as you keep notes and you're like, oh look, I have an entire underground organization of these humans feeding these other creatures who pass down the food to the goblins, who pass down the food to the ogres. Is it really an organized crime that the humans are making to feed this dungeon? It's then you get wrapped around and you're like, oh, spiral. You enter that wormhole.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, as I'm looking through the notes, what's your audience? Player type and audience. That's definitely a good thing to think about. Like when anytime I do a film project, My first question to the person that I am, if it's not something that's like my own, right? First question is always, who's your intended audience? How do you want them to see this? Because doing the exact same campaign, the exact same module as an example, like will be different if you're playing with your family, if you're playing with friends, if you're playing at a game store. Like all this is completely different, and the writer should write according to their audience. Like I think that's a line in like most comedy, just like read the audience, like do these jokes hit this specific type of audience, and that will help the writer make a good adventure, make a good game, make a good book. Does this match what your people want to read? Because you can write for yourself, and that's amazing, that's fine. But the intended goal is for, I assume, for others to read your work, for others to play your adventure. So I think that's a really good thought to have before you once you have your idea, once you have that spark, then you branch off into the, okay, now how I'm going to write this, how I'm going to look at my character stats and see what they have and start writing this. Oh, they don't have a healer, so they're obviously going to need to prepare more for like downtime to heal or buy potions or whatever. It's a thought on that. Mm-hmm. What how do you write for your audience? Like what's your thought on that?
I mean, depending on what it is, typically, like if I'm writing for if I'm writing for my Dungeons and Dragons campaign, then my audience is obviously my players, and I definitely want to cater to things that would interest them, which is why I always like to ask them questions like what do you want your character to succeed at? What's your character's intended goal? What are their ambitions? Like, what do they want to do? And like, I'll take that information and I'll try to like write it in however I can into the game. Like I asked what everybody wanted to do, like when you got to the dragon, and you were like, I want Fox to boop that dragon's nose, and I was like, yes, you fucking can, sir.
Yeah, it's and that helps the specifically for like these RPGs, it helps the player feel invested.
Yeah.
It's
serotonin reward.
Yeah, it's I got that smile, I got that happy, I did the thing.
Yeah.
Which there's nothing wrong with going to a hobby store and being like, dude, I'm just here to roll dice and get gold. Like that's perfectly fine.
Oh yeah.
Our Sunday game is pretty. Sorry, not Sunday. Theros, a Sunday game is pretty much like they already figured out the pattern. Is go find the false prophet, defeat them. There's 15 gods, 15 false prophets. Like it's a pretty cut and dry game. But those games are just there to let's just chill and relax. Let's just roll some dice and make some jokes and beat up some nerds. Like that's pretty much how that works.
Right.
But for some of our things, it's also good for the players to know how the DM writes. I've told every single one of my games, like, I want that drama. Give me that relatability. Like that's what I want. I want to hear your deepest, darkest, saddest thoughts so I can twist it. That's what I want. But then I listen to what you guys do, what you want to, how you want to work the world. Ariel wants to become a god. Okay, that's a very tall task. How do we get that done? How do you make that happen? Cole wants to explore the world and be an adult, not having to listen to his mommy anymore. How do we interpret that into the world? How would he make that happen? Wes just wants to do good. How do we make him struggle to do good? Harry Potter group is just a whole bunch of drama.
Just drama. I mean,
it's a teenage drama.
I'm like they're teenagers. What did you expect?
It's very much a teenage drama.
I deeply enjoy the drama between just Sonya and Jericho alone.
I think Steph just brings this chaotic energy into any.
She does. She really does.
She just comes in. It's like, all right, I know you have a story, but how can I blow it up?
Right. It's like I try to write like an in-depth what's going to happen for the game, like what I have planned. And then on like 5 different like sticky notes. I have contingency plans A through C about what could happen because of Steph.
Yeah, exactly. And like knowing your audience, knowing the players. When I was asked to join one of my non-stream game, one of my friends who DMs my girlfriend's game, it's I learned very fast that I could not invest a heavy backstory into those characters because it's so random. It's
Yeah.
like they had an entire adventure where they found the gate cube from Hellraiser, but they got stuck and only were changing each other's like races and sexes, and that's the entire 5-hour game. It was just playing with that on a boat.
Oh man.
And so, like, okay, cool. So, do not write a terrible drama about a kingdom. Got it. All right. I am a silly gnome who likes jewels. Cool. That's so knowing your audience definitely helps, and especially when you're like writing a book, it's going into theming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What are you writing for? Who are you writing for? Like,
Right.
Not necessarily for like accumulation of wealth or anything. Sorry.
I think when you're a game master, you're basically writing for yourself because you're the ones who have to make sense out of it all to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't understand what you're writing, don't expect everybody else to understand it too. And so I think, but when you're writing a story, you're writing to the audience, and you're basically trying to capture them because when you write, first thing I learned about writing is that you have to have a conflict on every page. It could be fighting the coffee machine or having a gigantic war with the world at the balance. So
yeah,
as long as you got conflict on every page, you're okay. But in gaming, you just have to make sure that it's challenging, it's engaging, and it's, people like to have, like our group, on Friday night, they like to overthink things. They like to think things out. They like to solve puzzles and stuff like that. Okay, fine, go for it. If that's what you like to do, go for it.
yeah. No, I like that the idea that every page has a conflict. Every which I'm trying to work that in my own games. It's like they're I forgot how I think it's like the A plot and the B plot, which is there's A plot. There's a book that fell from heaven, and there's always conflict around this book. What does this book mean? That's A plot. And then B plot is whatever that arc is, and then within that arc, there's daily challenges that you guys are coming with. Within a big arc, there's a character arcs as well. And the more I'm like, what does this session? And sometimes you won't get there just because I don't know. You spend 5 hours shopping, and there's gold with that sometimes, and sometimes there isn't gold with that. But that's the beauty of live playing the game. It's not like you can control like a video game where like every single gameplay there is that what do I need to write down for that action beat? What do I need to write for that conflict? With the book, you have control over it. You don't players they're chaotic. They do what they want. You're herding cats. But with your book, you're definitely writing every single page being something as a conflict. That's a brilliant thing that that I have not thought about. That's awesome. Trying to incorporate that into a game is awesome. I want to try to do that. It's a fun thing.
I think probably
to also add to that point. Now you're talking about writing for the game and writing the book. Now, if you're trying to get your game to become a book, so now you have to kind of balance out what you're doing, and then you're waiting for the players to play and see what their reactions are and see what their final outcome is, and then you have to somehow put that into a story on pages.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge that is a lot of fun to me. That's the best part, and because I can, like when I let these kids play Gamma World and they went through all this stuff, then I can sit down and see what they did. Okay, now how can I make sense out of this? How can I make the story work? What a bunch of 8th graders did, which you're playing with people in the future that have the minds of 8th graders. So, it makes it more challenging.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to do it. It's pretty cool. It's because it feels organic when when you're taking this instead of what will they do next? Well, I already know what they will do because this little girl just said what they were gonna do. It's pretty cool. So from moving on from audience into theme, goals and ambition. I know we talked about goals and ambition a little bit, but themes. What exactly do you mean by themes, Vic?
I guess I meant it in the way of like, what's like when you're writing, whether it's, I'm trying to think how to piece it together, but essentially like when you're writing, usually there's like a series of like common elements that come into play a lot when you're telling your story. And so I guess it's like what kind of message you want to bring with your story.
Okay.
That either you could give to your audience to interpret, or for your players to like take it as they will.
So like kind of like money corrupts, like
like Money Corrupts, or like for Sacred World where it's nature versus nurture, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, you guys have, yeah. There's a couple of those little themes here and there. The nature versus nurture, I didn't expect to hit that one a little, maybe harder than I anticipated when I first started the campaign almost 2 years ago. But that's like you said. Do all chromatic dragons follow Tiamat? Like,
yeah,
it's not a cut and dry world. It's not a binary system. It's things that are sentient have their own ideas, and that creates conflict, and that's where we live.
Yeah. And like, do you? And I guess another thing to ask is like, do you find yourself as looking back through the campaign, like there you have your intended theme, which let's like taking Sacred World for example, like you have your intended theme, which is nature versus nurture, and along the way as you're going, have you found that like if there's like an underlying unintentional theme it's like starting to weave itself together as the game goes on?
For Sacred World, I have found that challenging the status quo or authority, more specifically authority, has become an underlying thing that I did not notice as I've been writing this. And it became very evident after one of our, like, game's over, but we're still going to talk for the next 2 hours by ourselves. And it's like, we're in another kingdom, and another person of nobility has asked us to save their town. I don't trust them. It's like, oh, wow, I have done that a couple of times. It is like, I didn't know that's I hope it's not like a repetitive thing. I hope it's just thematic. That is what we're doing. I don't think it based on nobody complaining. I don't think that it's like again, is the royalty a bad person again? It's more of a like, we've learned not to trust things based on, like, don't trust a book based on its cover, or judge a book based on its cover. That butchered line. So yeah, I've been trying to reflect back on the other campaigns, like if that's a thing that I've been doing for Hogwarts. It's I've been doing my absolute best to give that Hogwarts feel of grandiose mystery, magic with no explanation, and it's going to boil down to a couple of kids who save the world because the adults don't challenge what's happening. And there is a little bit of that, like, challenging the status quo of, like, can you trust the ministry? Can you trust Dumbledore?
Realistically, no.
You should never trust Dumbledore unless he specifically talks to you for more times than you can think of. Then you trust him. You're gonna get hurt, but somehow he used you as a pawn to save the world.
Yes.
Because Dumbledore is a jerk.
Such an asshole. Yes.
Yeah, but what about you, Vic? Is there or Dickie, anything that has stood out from y'all's games that you're like, we covered this theme quite a bit?
As far as Tiamat goes, for sure, it's I feel like there's definitely a theme of naturally you guys have followed the found family route, which I just absolutely adore in every sense. Um, the
Yeah.
whole idea of I like Janva's whole thing of second chances, like when you come from something that was all you knew, but then you find out, oh wait, we're the bad guys. Hold
Yeah.
on.
That's a good
Like
fucking story.
challenging I guess challenging tradition, I guess, is a way to put it.
Oh.
uh,
Okay.
I guess I don't know if that was the right thing to say, but like challenging, like
That's
in a
interesting.
way, like the environment you were raised in.
Yeah. That's I like that. That definitely
Yeah.
fits Jamba. A lot of us, it fits that way for the
Mm-hmm.
group,
To,
especially.
to me, it's like that's more of a writing thing than it is a gaming thing, because when you write, you can basically control the emotion, you control the tempo of the story. When you're gaming, it's really kind of fluid because you're basically depending on the characters to roll the dice and determine what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
So,
Even then, I'd say that there's always going to be situations where a dice roll isn't happening, and it's all on how the player as the character is going to react to a situation. Like finding out the queen is not truly the queen and that she's been a witch in disguise this whole time, or like their long lost brother is suddenly alive again, or something like that.
That's
Like,
why for in my house rules for like our games, it's anytime there's ever a persuasion and deception and in investigation and insight, all those are really tricky. And I'm sure there's articles that can describe it better on how to actually go about doing that within games, specifically D&D. It's always and does whenever that happens, I literally like to just cross my arms, like, all right, does your character believe that? Well, what did the roll say? Like, no, you're a
what
real
do you
person's
think?
role. What do you think? Like, I do think that the dice will influence the decision. I roll the 20. Okay, then he triggers some things in the character, or a 1, they didn't trigger those things. But it's that live conversation between players.
Yeah.
When it comes to like NPCs versus PCs, it's really easy to higher number wins, lower number doesn't. But when
Yeah.
it's because when you're writing a story, not the game, you get those influence. You get that, oh, he's scratching his nose too much. Obviously, he's lying to me. But in those moments of the character, that's where that drama
Yeah. Which-
develops. It's really
Right. Like one thing that comes to mind for me is like on Friday when it was brought up the idea that there could be werewolves involved, and I was like, okay, Wes has lived in this area for most of his childhood. Do you think he would know anything about that? And then you had me roll the die, and that's where the whole story was weaved together. Of there was a sick child that you once knew of, and your guardian had to take care of that. And it's like, well, that opened a whole new written narrative right there.
yeah, and it's always fun when it's
Yeah.
Ryan loves to do that. He's like, there's been many a time. I mean, it's live, so you can see it. You can go back and watch it.
Yeah.
Where he's like, I'm sorry for dropping this on you, but here's backstory. Deal with it, DM. It's like, all right, takes notes. Okay, cool, understood. Let's write something with that. Oh man,
I love that. I love when characters get when players get so like invested in like the lore and like the world itself that they're like writing things in for their characters to interact with. I love that so much.
yeah, it's good. It's oh, and on note on for writing things down, if you're a DM, you should tell your players really early off. Take notes because I'm not going to correct you or be like, if you make a mistake, your person lived that life. It's not you. So like, I get it. You have a car payment to do. You're not going out and killing these bugs for XP. But I think having a theme, like a generalized nature versus nurture, like helps you definitely write down your games. Like for the Age of Maya, the next campaign for Friday, the theme in my head is exploration. This is a new world. You're exploring the world. How do I make an old a vibrant new age feel old and unexplored? So like that's the theme for that one. For the next campaign after Hogwarts, it's going to be an Arthurian tale, which is we are going back to old school D&D. Like
Love it.
Low magic, very dangerous high ends. And there is a reason why we have walls in this castle. As soon as you leave it, that forest over there has a lot of danger. Don't go out and explore. Being an adventurer means something. So like those things will help you write your games. And it's if you're like, oh, what do I do for this session? There you go. What's your theme? Go back to those roots.
Yeah.
So how do we get all these things and how do we translate it into a book? See, the first thing that you have is canon. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Oh, yeah. So my first thought process when I was writing that down was I was thinking of all the times, like, you know, when you go to bookstores and you see that there are actual, like, written D&D adventures as novels that you can read through. So, like, thinking in terms of, like, how do you take those adventures themselves, whether they came from, like, already pre-written, like, canon material by Wizards of the Coast or what have you. In truth, I have not looked through any of them, so I don't have much say on what it is. It's just my pure observation of, I see they have D&D books, and they're narrative books you can read. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah. Because what are they? There's Dragonlance, there's Faerun, Forgotten Realms.
Yep.
There's
Greyhawk.
Yeah, they're the Greyhawk Tales. I think that's probably others that I can't think of.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, like even Magic the Gathering has like their own like books and lore.
Oh,
Halo apparently is like super deep in that too. Like every person that I know that is very tactic or like plays Warhammer, they're like, oh, the books are amazing. I'm like, oh, I didn't know there was lore to just you guys, you know, rolling your dice and finding these armies. Like, no, there's like a lot of deep lore.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if you're doing something not D&D, because you know, copyrights and publication is a thing. If eventually you make money, and when money comes, people will sue if you stole their idea.
There's an official D&D cookbook. Hold up.
That's...
I actually went on the Wizards website because I wanted to see what and all was on there.
So, are you telling me there's an entire book to help you with your pastry digitation channel? That's amazing.
Quote unquote working title. Yes.
Quote unquote working title for a year.
Quote unquote working title. Yeah. So that's definitely a book I want to look through.
Jeremiah has there's a Harry Potter one, there is a Legend of Zelda one, and then there's
I have a Game of Thrones one, and I want the Skyrim one. So
I think Jeremiah
all about
has
collecting. I am all about collecting fantasy cookbooks.
This is slightly business talk, but we really need to like work on that because me and Jeremiah have some ideas, so we'll talk about that later. Right. But yeah, so
back on the novels.
Not using their thing. I huge horror fan. So the number one thing that I look for horror things that works for does this movie work, does this story work, is rules are established. And Freddy Krueger enters your dreams at night. Like, enters your dreams. That's how it can kill you. Like, that's a pre-established rule. And based on that, you can make an entire story out of this. So, like, I think making your rules, a lot of it stems from the few, like, tabs that I have open. Either the number one rule or the second rule about fantasy and sci-fi and writing is, what is a magic system? How does magic work?
Yes.
Or how does the high technology work? Like, once you establish these rules, it helps you develop your world, because you don't want to run into the problem where like J.K. Rowling is, because I legitimately think she's a bad writer. I've never liked her writing. I like the universe, but I don't like her writing. As a person who has never written anything in his life.
As far as I'm concerned, that's your universe now. As far as I'm concerned, you wrote the entirety of all that stuff.
But I think it's getting caught up in the state. I have ideas. Let me write these ideas down. But I never had a backbone. I never had that skeleton, like Dickie said, to write everything else. And like, oh, wizards existed in the time before restrooms. Well, how do they use the restroom? Oh, they just defecate on the floor and magic it away. Did you really? That's why. Why is that a thing that you need to publish
stupid
to
as
the
hell.
world?
Jesus fucking Christ! It's like she never even knew that actual fucking irrigation systems existed. Holy God! I'm gonna start ranting about that. Let's
So like,
move on.
if you're going to write a like
historically, it makes no sense.
Obviously, it's just dumb. But if you're gonna write a fantasy thing, the theme of fantasy has established a lot of your world. Gold is a thing, and you go out and venture, and you find a tavern, and you have these things. Going to Western has its themes, has its rules already. Sci-fi is really broad, and like you can pick so many things: post-apocalyptic or super high sci-fi society, in Star Wars, etc. Like you have all these things that you can just grab and pull, and like those are your rules. But
and one thing you got to realize too is that one thing I learned about writing when I'm writing sci-fi, fantasy, and stuff like that. You as a writer may understand everything that you're writing, but sometimes you lose concept of what the reader can understand and what the reader can conceive of what you're trying to put together. Because if what you're putting down is what you think and what you feel, yet the reader doesn't get it, then the reader's not going to read what you got.
Yeah.
So you have to understand the reader. You have to dummy it down a little bit just to get them to follow along what's going on.
Yeah. Do you think that's why the fish out of water character is so successful? Because
I mean, I think it entirely depends on the reader. Like, you don't want to write specifically for everyone so that you can make it palatable for everybody. That's why you have to know who your target audience is.
Right.
If you know for a fact that your target audience are people that are going to be able to grasp what your magic or scientific system is, then I mean, me personally, I'm a person that I don't like my hand being held. If I'm entering this world, that somebody's writing, I want to be able I want to be able to understand it, but like I don't want to be treated like I'm stupid about it. Like that's I think why I enjoyed The Witcher as a show, because the way they narratively presented it, they weren't treating me like I was dumb. They weren't spelling it out for me. They're like, all right, we're presenting it like this, piece it together.
Yeah, because like in the two that stand out the most to me is Luke and Harry.
Yes.
Like what is this? What is a Jedi? Let me hold your hand through the entire process. What is Hogwarts? Let me hold your hand through the entire process.
Which I feel like it could get kind of bogged down and slow when you're having to explain every aspect of your world to somebody.
Do you think if it's a new and how do you know? That's another question. But like, when it's something new, like Star Wars is, I correct me when I'm wrong, but Star Wars, the idea was for that audience, that mass amount of audience, was pretty new. Hogwarts was pretty new as a concept. Even Supernatural, like the first
Twilight.
Twilight, the first couple episodes was just calling the audience by the hand and be like, this is the world, let's establish the rules, then go into chaos. Versus one of the best things that all the Marvel movies had thus far is, I'm not explaining anything to you, maybe the first 20 minutes, because you know who Captain America is, you know what Thor is, we don't need to go to that. Spider-Man, he's there.
Yeah, it's there's only so many times you can go through a Spider-Man origin story.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess jumping onto that, I think that's why me personally, I enjoy Star Trek as a narrative, because you're already in deep space. They're on a mission. They're gonna do this thing. They have communicators and phasers, and you're gonna just figure out what those are yourself.
Speaking of Star Trek, which goes into specifically of the writing of the show. Thought. If I'm going with writing, which Star Trek versus Star Wars, I always go with Star Trek, even though I've watched like zero things of Star Trek. Everything that I enjoy of Star Trek is stories I've been told about the show. It's tackling the real live social dilemmas, I guess. Like, civil rights, as an example, just a very broad one, right? Like, Star Trek would be like, yo, here's a black woman and a white man, and they're gonna kiss. That's controversial. Like, well, what's in the future? Like, things like that.
Yeah.
Do you think it helps the writer to get something? Which I think the easiest one is Nazis equal bad.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
mean,
just common sense. That's just common sense.
of course, yeah.
During the 90s, there was another show that dealt with a lot of social things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people didn't see it because it was on cable. First it started on Showtime. Then it switched over to Sci-Fi. And that was Stargate SG-1.
Oh, I love
The
Stargate.
original Stargate movie was great. I mean, it had a great concept, great idea.
Yeah.
Then they took that movie and they put it into something else
Yeah.
that opened up all the legends of the world were actually alien cultures. And how, they go through the Stargate and go to these different cultures and see these different situations. And, you would think that, the general stuff, the stuff that happens, you would understand it, but they would always have a little twist to it to kind of change it up.
Yeah.
And it really made it, interesting to follow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
like
I
that
love
idea.
Stargate's so good.
It's trying to word my thoughts, so I'm
Right.
not just
So
jumbling.
talking about lore building and like writing and basically creating like worlds that you can introduce to an audience or readers or
That
whatever.
has social aspect to it.
Yeah. Which world building in itself that can be an entire conversation. I feel
Yeah.
I could probably talk a long time about that because I'm currently world building for a whole webcomic.
Which is going amazing.
God, oh man, like
Wait.
the past few nights, Len and I have been up till like 4 a.m. like doing big lore talks and like hashing out timelines and etc. And it's just been absolutely nuts. Yes,
Was Stargate Atlantis Jason Momoa's intro?
I believe so.
To
Yes,
like.
it was.
Oh, really? Nice. That's cool. Oh man.
That's when you start making it big time.
Oh, nice. I met Jason Momoa. Wait, excuse me. I met his shoulder once.
Yeah, he shoulder checked you, right?
Yeah, he did. I don't think this has been told on live yet, but yeah, I was at a Dragon Con being late for a photo shoot, and this dude bumped into me, and I'm a young 20-year-old impressionable, like, I work out a lot guy. So I turned around to be like, hey man, Ixco, and then I turn up, look upwards, and it's just Jason Momoa as he just like looks at me like, hey. This is like when
And he was like fresh from playing Conan, right?
Yeah, exactly. He just finished doing Conan, so he had the Conan body, and I was like,
So you literally shoulder checked into West.
I was like, I hit a freaking brick wall, and it's like, oh, what's up?
He was like, hey,
Yeah, it's like, hey, how you doing?
what's up, man?
Oh yeah. Going back on track. Sorry. Do you think social aspects like X-Men? Oh, X-Men's beautiful, right? I think one of the biggest way you want people to read your books.
Yeah.
You want people like that's the main thing, right? After all, and I think a way to do that is. The books that are more successful is how do I relate to this? Why am I attracted to the main character? And something like X-Men, I think there's a beautiful, beautiful thing where it's like not fitting in. The social issue that they're dealing with is racism. Is any ism that like says you're not part of the cookie cutter mentality of what you should be, right? So.
Yeah, I always took it for like an allegory to like LGBTQ community.
Of course, yeah. It's you are born different.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. One of the easiest depictions of it is Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is a good good Catholic boy.
He's a good boy.
Like, he is one
I
of
love
the
Kurt.
kindest, most loving individuals who's gone through so much pain. At the end of the day, he's like, hey, I love you and I want you to be okay. And with Jesus Christo, we can overcome this. Like, but the image that stands out to me, like the oldest one that I can remember, is a politician holding a sign and like pointing towards Nightcrawler and said, "Is that human? Is that what we're gonna consider human?" It's like,
Ugh.
and it's just right. It's disgusting to think that because he's such a good person. And it's like, well, and we can list all the atrocities that happen. But that same question, like, do you fit in as an American? Like, do you fit in as blank or this or that, whatever? So that grabs the audience of saying, I'm an outcast, or I am part of this community or that community, and I have felt those negative comments.
Yeah.
Those things are relatable. Why do we feel for this person? I've seen so many red letter media shows that one of the biggest faults of the movie is I don't relate to this character. There's nobody can relate to this guy. Like, I think Superman had that, like, as a modern person reading Superman, had that as a big conflict. There's no way I can relate to a god. He's perfect. There's nothing you can do to relate to that person.
I could have a whole conversation on Superman, honestly.
Which, let me make sure that everybody understands. I love Superman and Captain America.
Yeah.
I absolutely love those two characters. Not because, and the reason why I love them is the reason why everybody hates them. Everybody being in quotations. Like Cindy absolutely hates Captain America. And I'm like, why do you hate the character? He's too good. He's always correct. He always does the right thing. Like, that's not his conflict. The conflict is... She probably would.
She'd probably hate Wes, let's be real.
it's one of those where, like, Wes is probably more relatable to Wolverine than Captain America. You're both doing the correct thing. You're both fighting for someone that cannot fight for themselves. It's just Captain America has to do it the right way. He has to go to the pains of, I need to do this the right way, and I need to do it the legal way. While Wolverine and Wes are like, no, let's just cut their throats. That's the fastest way to do it. Like,
I mean, that's an exaggeration, but like,
yes,
Wes for sure isn't gonna like think too hard about the law.
Yeah, and that's Cap's thing is, how do I do the right thing with a stacked deck with injustice, even though I believe in justice?
What you're telling me is that I need to draw Ariel as Captain America and I need to draw West as Wolverine.
That's funny. For a lot of reasons, that's really funny. Just because DPS versus high AC too, so that's really funny.
Oh, this joke has layers,
right? And like for Superman, we get it. Every single issue, he became stronger. Now he can fly instead of just jumping really far. Now he's not like weak against electricity. Like at the peak of Superman Prime, he held eternity in his palm. That concept is stupid, powerful. Everything that ever is and was and will be, Superman's like, I'm going to grab it. How can you, where's the skill? How do you write upwards? So let's change the story. How can a god be relatable to a person? Well,
it depends on your definition of a god, truthfully.
Well, yes. Like, that's why I loved Henry Cavill's Superman. That one scene where everybody just died in the office, that's... I can't save all these people. I'm watching them die in front of me. Mm-hmm. Because I'm literally not faster than light. So I'm not faster than this explosion.
Depending on the publication, yes.
Yeah, of course. Or like it's just too late, and we've all been there where like there's nothing I can do. Like
Wes has had those moments.
Like your mom had a car accident, there's nothing I can do. I'm just sitting here powerless watching this happen. Like that's relatable. You get those moments and you hone those in, and that's how your story gets that that
Right,
good
right.
tastiness. But so going on, I guess the topic of relatability. What do you guys do? Is that a conscious thing that you guys think about? Do you think
Relatability.
yeah, like do you think it comes naturally, or is it just something as the story progresses, like we will eventually find those hooks because we're writing it and we're human
Mhm.
too?
I'm gonna
Well,
say okay. Go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I was gonna say that in terms of relatability for characters and like writing in characters for relatability, it's for me, it's kind of something that I have learned to be second nature because
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the vast amounts of media and stories that are out there, and it's like, okay, I want to find a say I want to find a book that features a character that I can relate to that is like me, and I could take all that vast collection of media and I can narrow it down to maybe like 5 books,
Mm-hmm.
maybe,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe. So it's like, okay. Um, for me, it's kind of trained into a second nature kind of thing. Is I like to think from the perspective of people that want to read, stories that they feel they can relate to, that they feel that they could be a part of. Because there's always the conversation of, oh well, there's not this superhero that looks like me, or there's not this character that's has the same problem that I do. Like maybe like for instance, I think one thing I can think of is Rick Riordan is a fantastic writer, and I greatly enjoy his novels that he writes for young adults, which is basically taking Greek stories, writing them for like 13 through 17-year-olds, and
Oh,
he's always putting in characters that those people can relate to.
is
Like,
that the Percy Jackson
yeah,
series? Okay, cool, got
yeah.
it.
So the Heroes of Olympus,
Mm-hmm.
and he has like several different adaptations. So he's got Greek lore, he's got Norse mythology, he has Egyptian lore, and so he's taken characters and he's like always writing in like I think recently in Trials of Apollo, it was mentioned that there is a non-binary character,
Hmm.
and and like for instance, one of the other characters that was in like one of the previous books is like, oh hey, guess what, I'm gay now. So they're like, oh okay, so he's learning to adapt to where there's like a level of diversity within his novels that people really enjoy,
Yeah.
which is why I enjoy him very much. So yeah, it's kind of thinking, I don't know how to clearly answer it other than I guess just like being conscious of who your reader is going to be, which
Goes
is
back
always a
to
weird argument. It's always a weird argument for me because it's like me personally, when I'm writing my own stuff, like if I'm writing for Alistair, truthfully, when I'm writing for Alistair, I'm specifically writing for me and Lynn.
yeah.
Because we're like, this is our webcomic. This is something that we're enjoying, and we hope that everybody enjoys it with us, but we're writing for ourselves. This is our story that we're telling. And so it's the whole including things that we like, we're writing it for ourselves, but also being conscious of the people that are going to be reading it in the future.
Yeah.
And I think what I do with that, I think specifically with my own novels, is I look at you know people that are in my social circles, people that are in my friends groups, and thinking, wanting to include that within my stories. Like, I have so many different people from so many different walks of life that are in my life. And so it's one of those things where I want to take that and have them also involved in it so they can see a little bit of themselves in it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, what I was going to say was that sometimes when you're writing something, you
Mm-hmm.
really got to be careful not to get involved in the cliches. I mean, you really got to, everybody writes basically the easiest writing is the one where you do cliches. You just, you can pretty much figure out the outcome and stuff like that. But I think that when you give it a different twist and give it something that people are not expecting, then I think, your writing can get better.
Yeah. Like there's I noticed I have a lot of I will say that I'm ill prepared for this conversation for the fact that I'm not a heavy reader, and I think the only way to become a better writer is read a lot, write a lot. Like that's Stephen King has said that. Like that's probably the best way to become that. The best way to become a filmmaker is make movies and watch movies. You know, like.
No, I mean, I feel that. I feel that because like I've as a kid I used to read so many books. Like I just knock them out one by one, and now as an adult I'm like, where do I have the time?
Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
So now I know, right? Now I mean I've discovered audiobooks. So audiobooks have helped me.
God, yeah,
So,
those are amazing.
audiobooks and podcasts. There's so many good podcasts that I listen to.
There's that clichéness of
Mhm.
For Hollywood as an example, they always want I have a joke for this that I kind of stole from somebody, but it's there's always that love interest. Like every single movie has to have that love interest, and a lot of the time, Vic's reaction is perfect. It's like it's just unnecessary. This is extra work.
It is.
Taken away from
It
the
doesn't
story.
pertain to the plot.
And what I've discovered is a lot of Hollywood has has a clause in most of their things. Is this is how we're going to give you money? Is the main character has to have the not gays. It's let's give them a love interest because they're not gay. That's the only reason why. Like Bill and Ted's the newest movie, their wives were just there and did nothing. There was no point to have their wives in the movie because they did literally nothing. They had 2 words and then that's it. They left. It wasn't world building. It wasn't establishment. They didn't have a conflict with them. It's just they're there. And exactly the bleh. And it's going into those cliches of like, oh, I have a wife and 2 kids. Like, why?
I am totally straight. Look at me, Mr. Straight Man. I have a goddamn.
So falling into those pitfall traps is
which
bad.
I feel it's such an awful thing to do because you can write good chemistry between characters, and and it could be like a completely normal romance, but you can actually write good chemistry. It's just that they choose not to, for the sake of just being woman here, him not gay.
I think Shaun of the Dead was amazing for that.
Yeah.
The better story is not the guy gets the girl at the end, or the guy gets the guy, or the girl gets the girl.
Yeah, that's a whole
I think
conversation.
It's the sense of attraction that doesn't go all the way. You know what I'm saying? That there's a respect, there's a feeling. I mean, the best one I can think of is the movie League of Their Own.
Yes.
About the girls' baseball team.
I love that movie.
Attraction about Gina Davis's character and Tom Hanks' character.
Yeah.
There was an attraction there, but they never could really act on it. But it was there, and it was real. I think things like that makes the story more interesting.
Yeah, it's that little bit of a conflict. Which
so we're back to that conversation again.
Right.
In conflict and flaws definitely make the story amazing. We can relate to those things. It's again a little bit going back to that Superman conversation. Is like Superman has no flaws, so he sounds boring. Captain America is pure. He's too good-hearted. He has no flaws. He's never gonna do a bad thing. Which is like in The Boys, Butcher is such a horrible human. Like,
is that a great series or what?
It's pretty good. Like, he's such a bad person. Legitimately, he's a bad person.
Well,
but you're rooting
why
for
he's
him.
A bad person too. He's got a lot of anger built up.
Yeah, he had, and we've all been in a situation where like I've felt his pain of someone getting hurt, and there's nothing I can do about it. But I mean. I can go on about that, but it might not be appropriate for the conversation we're having today. But yeah, you're rooting for that character. They wrote an amazing story because you're rooting for them. It's amazing. I got distracted with the piece of art my friend just sent, which is beautiful. That's such a really amazing Minotaur. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm scrolling back to get to the points here. It's this make sure that they have flaws and make sure that they have a conflict.
Make them people. Treat them like people.
Yeah, it's
like I feel like that's always the best way to write it. You're writing a person. Treat them like a person.
True.
I think also when kind of going back to writing about games and stuff like that, like D&D. I don't know what's copyrighted as far as, orcs. I don't think they're copyrighted. Goblins, no elves. So anybody can write about them.
Mm-hmm.
But that kind of changes it up when you're talking about Gamma World. That they're pretty specific on what they got.
Yeah.
And when I write about it, I have to change animals. I have to change weapons. I have to change different equipment.
Yeah.
Different things just to make it fit into that story to where it's similar to the Gamma World, but yet it's also different too.
Yeah. Pathfinder had to do that as well because, like, I think illithids and mind flayers are a D&D thing. Like, they created it. So, like, other RPGs, like Pathfinder, cannot use them, even though there's creatures that, like, resemble the idea of one, but they never flat out say, oh, this is an illithid. And, yeah, you definitely need to be careful with that stuff.
Yeah. This is a man with an octopus face.
Octopus man.
Octopus man!
Yeah, and
Well, see, what I'm upset
mm-hmm.
about is that the story I'm writing, I picked a name out for a character, and I said, "Oh, this is such a cool name. I can use this guy and work with it and stuff like that." So I've been writing it for years, and what happens during the movie? They go ahead and title it his name, and I'm like, "Are you serious?"
I mean, no. You could still use it. It's not like it's clearly a copyrighted name.
It comes from Greek or Roman mythology.
Exactly. So therefore, it's free domain.
Exactly.
Unless Disney does anything about it.
This is true.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's a thing that once you start into the realm of publishing, that's something you have to look into.
Copyright is a thing, yeah.
Yep.
Because exactly, I know of a person who that's as much as I want to be related to that individual. I know someone who their entire job is to find things that are not copywritten, buy the domain of it, and then sue you for not having that copywritten, and then says your entire work is mine or you paid me this money. Which obviously people are gonna be like, I'll pay you this money because this is my original work.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Lynn and I are in the works of getting Alistair copywritten. Which
is good. You guys really should. You're getting a lot of traction. You guys, it's a thing, and there are a few locations that I can name of where once you are at that point that you are ready to like send to the location. I know RPG Drive-Thru is a great location for publishing anything within this realm, even your novel, your module, your level 4 one dungeon adventure. Like you can publish it there, and it's you can set it for free. You can put a price tag on it. My favorite go-to is the ones pay me whatever you think this is worth. It's out there. Those are really, really cool too, and it has a good community to get your stuff published. There's also freelancewriting.com, which has guidelines specifically that you can look into, saying like, okay, if you want to publish under sci-fi, it needs this many words. It cannot be this, or this. This is the money that you have to come in with, and this is what you get out of it. So there's quite a few things. I know that Facebook has a group right now going on this. I think it's called like how to get paid as a DM or getting paid as a DM, something like that, where it puts you through these locations in I guess courses or something that you eventually will get paid as a dungeon master. And there's other things like which isn't specifically you doing your work and getting published for your work, but there is the I forget what it's called, where like your character runs through the adventures that D&D publishes, and like you keep the same person throughout different DMs and stuff.
Is it like Adventures League or?
Yeah, Adventures League. There you go. Like you're not technically, it's not your work. You're using somebody else's work, but you are still as dungeon master getting that skeleton and shaping it to so you are still writing, but it's that's another
I know some people that are involved with that,
which is amazing. It's fun. That's another way to make a little coin by doing your thing. My final little thought here, as we're getting towards that time, is a little bit of your audience in writing, because doing something like what Dickie did which is having a game. The players come up with the adventure stuff. You write that. There is your novel, right? That's a beautiful idea, and that made me come up with this question of like knowing your audience of the exact same story of the novel versus the adventure that you're publishing, because like you guys have been saying, you have this this module, but the module is pretty bare bones, and you're building the world around that. If you are building your novel, throw in that fluff, throw in those details, throw in the conflict, etc. But when you're writing for an adventure, like this is the dungeon, you I believe, don't want to get bottled down in those details, because it's not a story. It is the skeleton used for a dungeon master to come up with the rest of the place.
Yeah.
If you have like a world building thing, like Taldor as an example, like yes, you have the entire first third of the book is the world building. The next section is the characters in it, and the last section is all the dungeons, as an example. But yeah, that's a little tidbit I wanted to throw out there into the ether. But final thoughts on this. Any questions from chat that you guys want us to discuss?
Well, I mean, DMing and writing are the same exact thing, because basically you're creating a world. It's being executed differently. The game DMing, you're creating something, and then you're just going to go ahead and let the game play out itself, and then you're pretty much going to figure out, okay, how can I go from here, and how can I, work it from here. Writing, and if you're writing from a game, I think the beauty of it, if you take it, like what I did with my kids, I took notes. I just had character sheets, and I just wrote in their history, and everything that happened that day, I just added to them. And after about a month or so, or 2 months, I started realizing there's something here. I can do something with this. So sometimes it happens by accident. You don't have to plan it. It just happens.
I know that's a really good point. Not forcing it would be a good thing to take away from it.
Exactly.
Sorry,
I know no, it's okay. I know for me, DMing and writing is essentially, as Father said, it's one and the same. Me in a kind of a funny way, because when it comes to writing my story, like the one that I'm currently publishing online on Royal Road, what I've done to kind of help further along my story and to help me kind of think about things and like how characters react is I do treat it like a solo Dungeons and Dragons adventure. I actually do have stats for my characters that I have written out. I have rolled for them. And I'm just like, I have like a list of things of like, okay, so this is what I believe they would do. So they're going to go into this town. Let's see what happens. Oh no, there's going to be a fight starting. What do I do? And like, if I'm stuck on an idea that I'm not sure what will happen, I will actually roll dice for them just to see what happens.
Exactly. I do the same thing, because some of my characters they were pre-rolled. And when I'm writing and I want to get to something adventure and I don't know what to do with it, I roll it out. And the dice, like I said, the dice always direct us in the direction we're going to go. So,
and believe it or not, it really helps me, especially if there's a combat scene. Yes. So I actually roll initiative for them, and then I like play it out, because it makes it so much easier to put the pacing for it in.
Also, I have body parts that whenever they get hit or something like that, I can add that wherever they got hit.
Oh yeah, I love the body part dice. Story. Yeah,
that's cool. Oh man,
yeah,
I love our conversations. I always do. But yeah, all right, guys. I am just making sure that that's. I think that's gonna do it for tonight.
Okay.
As always, I love poking y'all's brains and knowing what's happening. Our next podcast is going to be on Halloween week. We're gonna have the very broad topic of horror. Let's just talk about a horror.
Oh man, I have something for you then for that.
I love horror.
I love it.
In just a little tidbit that could be related to this as well, but for horror is once you pick your genre, not necessarily theme, but your genre, make sure that if you're doing it for D&D, a 2-hour movie of like, oh my god, my emotions, that was scary, is fine. A book, it's fine, but when it's every single episode of daunting horror, it could get really
You get saturated real quick.
Yes, yeah, for like a long campaign for D&D.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a conversation we'll have last time. But all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, listening to us speak on topics that we love. We would be doing this without the microphone, so let's add a microphone. Let's do a show about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget to follow all of our channels. The information's down below. Our bros projects for Alistair, our friends at Talon and Claw, and make amazing products. Yeah, all our information, even our merch info is all down below. If you're listening to this in the future on Spotify or Anchor, just go down below if it's on the information. If you're watching this or listening to it on YouTube, the info is down below. Please don't forget to love one another, be kind to one another. We'll see you next time. Adios, everybody.
Bye.
Peace out.